In this lesson, we'll set some basic configurations to make our development process a bit easier and more standardized. Nest scaffolding already did a lot of the heavy work for us, so we'll just make some last steps. First of all, if we check this file that Nest created, for example, the main file, we'll notice here that Nest created a file using this pattern, using an LF line break and two-spaced indentation. However, if I do create a file manually, which we'll do sometimes throughout the course, for example, this file, we'll notice that Zyme on Windows, it created the file using a CRLF line break and four-space indentation. Well, naturally, it is normal for Windows to have files with this line break, but I do want to follow this pattern that Nest uses. So to achieve this objective, I will make some configurations to have this setting. So I will just delete this file. And now I will create here in the root directory a new folder called .vscode. And in here, I will create the file settings.json. If I wanted, I could adjust these settings in VS Code itself. But if I did this, these settings would work only for my IDE or my account. In other words, they would be bound to me. But imagine that we are in a development team. If I instead adjust these settings through this specific file, then they will be bound to the project. So anyone developing this project will follow these same patterns. Therefore, this is a great step towards standardization. Let's actually begin then. First, I will adjust this file itself manually. So I'll click here to make its line ending LF, and then click here and here to make it have two-space indentation. Now, this is a JSON file, so I'll open curly braces here. Then the options I use are files.endofline. Then I use this first option, which is equivalent to LF. And now I use the option editor tab size, which I'll put 2. Then I'll save the file. And now if I try to create the file once again, that example file, you'll notice that now it is following those patterns. And just to show what would happen without those settings, which I forgot to do, I'll just come back here and quickly comment these settings with Ctrl/, save, and then I'll quickly create a new file here, which I will call new file. Now it has those old patterns. So if I do this, write anything really here, you'll notice first that if I use a tab here, it will use 4 spaces instead of 2. And if I press enter, it will complain to delete the CR. So that's why we follow these patterns. So I'll just delete these files. So that we may continue. Now, Nest has already set up a lot of things for us, remember? Well, one of those things is the Eslint and prettier files. Together, these files have some nice configurations for code formatting. For example, if I delete this semicolon, it will start complaining. But if I save, it remains the same. I can use a setting that will fix this automatically on save. To achieve this, it's quite simple. I just need to go back to the settings.json file. I will uncomment this. Now, I'll use the option editor, format unsave, set to true. And I'll save this file. And now, if I save here, this will be automatically fixed. Another improvement we could make is this one. I will comment this code. And now notice that these imports are not being used anymore. If I save, well, nothing happens. But there is an option that can automatically organize imports on save. I could set this option in the settings.json file, but this would not be ideal because the code formatting and the imports organization would conflict with each other. There is a better way to do this, which is to install a plugin. So I'll go here in the terminal, and here I'll write yarn add -d for a development dependency, prettier plugin, organize imports. Then I'll proceed to install it. And now if I go back here, this generally takes some time to take effect, so I'll just hit Ctrl-Shift-P, then reload the window, and then wait a little bit until this finishes initializing. And now, if I save the file again, now it organizes the imports and removes the unused imports automatically. So I'll just uncomment this to have it back the way it was. And also, don't forget to save this file again. The next step is completely optional and depends on your taste. Well, I personally do not like at all JavaScript files on my codebase. So I like to go to this Eslint file and remove this JS extension. If I do this, this file will become a JSON file due to TsConfig. So how do we fix this file now? First, I will delete this module.exports here. And in a JSON file, everything must be, well, almost everything must be surrounded by double quotes. So I will select a single quote, like this one, and there is a hotkey, which is Ctrl-D, which selects the next similar block of code. So if I hit Ctrl-D, it selects this one, for example. So I'll hit Ctrl-D until it selects all of them. Now I will write Shift quote to have a double quote and replace all of them. And now where it is still red, I will double click at this first one, and I will hold the Alt key to have a multiple selection. And now, while holding the Alt key, I will double click all the other options. And I can use a double quote again. Now the next step would be to delete these unused commas. As this is a JSON file, we need to be much stricter with this kind of thing. A comma like this one may break the file. So I'll try to find all of them, and I'll be holding the Alt key, which creates multiple cursors. So I'm holding the Alt key here and clicking wherever I find unused commas. I can hit the backspace to delete these commas. And now, if you follow along, this line and this one will not be necessary anymore. This one actually needs to be removed. So I will proceed and delete them. So with this, we have now a JSON Eslint file. Before proceeding to the next improvement, I'll go back to the main file to try to explain something quickly. As you may already know, but if not, the pathing style used, by default, is the shortest path, which means that the path can be absolute, which starts from the root folder, or a relative path, which starts from the directory in which this file is located, like this path. And the IDE will automatically choose the shortest path. In the case of an absolute path, for example, if I import something from, let's say, source, domain, users, user entity, this represents an absolute path. But the entire codebase is inside the source folder. So it would be interesting if we could omit this part. In the same way, the entities of the project will be located inside the domain folder. So it would also be nice if we could omit this part too. And we'll learn how to do this right now. I'll just delete this and save again. Now I'll go to the file TsConfig, which has configurations for TypeScript, as the name implies. And to alter the root path, I'll change the field baseUrl. I'll just add source here. Now for the domain part, I will create a new field called paths with the following. What this means is that if the true path to something is source, remember that the path starts with the baseUrl, which is source. If the true path to something is source, domain, and then anything after that, then what should be showed in the import, like this, is just this something after source domain. If it's not this, if it's anything else, then just show this anything without the source part. If this seemed confusing, well, TsConfig paths are indeed confusing, in my opinion. So sorry for this, but I hope that I made this at least somewhat clear. I will then save this file, and we can then go to the last step. In case you don't know, in the previous lesson, we accessed a route from the app controller, which is the getHello route. And by doing this, it returned the homonym method from app service, which returned the hello world string. Well, this is nice as a first test, but we won't be needing these files anymore. Then we can just proceed and delete them. And then in the app module, I can just then delete them from here in these references. And because of the improvement we made, when I save, this will be automatically cleaned for me. So you can consider this just a cleanup. With this, we have concluded the basic configuration. I hope it wasn't too cumbersome. So we can then proceed to the source control and commit the changes. So I will stage everything, and then use the message basic project configuration. With this, we have concluded our configuration. An important notice before finishing the lesson: if you are interested in the parallel module with Prisma, then you should create a new branch for it right now, so that when you come back to it later, it will be in this exact state. So you can then go to source control and branches. In here, I will click in the plus symbol to create a new branch, and we'll call it Prisma. And then select create branch. And there we have it. So, until the next lesson.